Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Beginner Guitar Academy podcast. I'm your host, Paul Andrews, and in this week's episode, we're looking at 5 practice habits your future self will thank you for. So 5 things I see all the time in students, or just people I see watching their videos or playing on YouTube or something like that if they'd been mindful of these habits early on when they started playing guitar, it would not be a problem years down the line. It's those kind of little habits that if we start focusing on early, obviously, is not going to become an issue. But once you go those few years into your guitar playing, they're very hard to get out because you're so used to doing them. So these are 5 things that I see with students all the time, which I want to tell you guys to help you not fall in the trap of these habits. Now, before we dive into this, I'm just going to talk a little bit about next month on the podcast. So in March, we are doing Metal March. So the podcast, every episode is going to be focusing on metal music. For beginner guitar key members, we have some cool stuff we can look at. Our song of the month is going to be Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I'm going to do some new quick tips looking at metal guitars. We're going to look at like tapping, how to do a gallop rhythm, that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the month, we're going to do 5 Iron Maiden riffs. So I've had quite a few requests for Iron Maiden workshop. Now, it's a big year for Iron Maiden this year, being their 50th anniversary. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to look at some cool Iron Maiden tunes. We're also going to do a live Q&A as well. All that information will be coming out in the next sort of week or so. But I thought I'd give you a little heads up now. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you do not want to miss out on Metal March. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, or something like that, you can go and check out the video version of this podcast over at the bgapodcast.com website. You also find the blog there as well. So if you want to watch it, if you want to read it rather than hear it, you can do that over at the website. Again, bgapodcast.com. So now we've got kind of the news and what's coming around the corner out of the way. Let's dive into this week's content. So the first thing, or the first practice habit we want to talk about, is use a metronome. So I see this all the time with people that submit their level assessments or progress checks through Beginner Guitar Academy. Lack of timing. So not being able to stay in time with the clicks. That's one of the things they have to in the level assessments, because it shows me obviously they can stay in time. They know the rhythm, they can play it. It's just not using the metronome enough. Now, metronome is so important, not just for doing your level assessments, stay in time with music. Even high level students I've got now in those kind of level 3, level 4, where we play along with full songs to backing tracks. The timing is normally the issue, where they have to go back and just work on that a little bit harder. It's not intuitive. It's not just happening. They're not locking into the beat. That will happen if you are playing with a metronome. Metronome will teach you to stay on a beat. That's all the metronome does. It's just clicking out the heartbeat of the music, the pulse. Now, if you can get that pulse, tap your foot along that pulse, you're going to stay in time a lot easier, more consistently. So really important to use a metronome. No excuse, because they're so easy to get. You can get a metronome at metronomeonline.com, completely free. You can download Super Metronome. It's a great little app. You can buy the Korg MA1, I think it is, and kind of the newest one. If you don't want to use your phone, you don't want to use your computer, you just want a standalone unit, there's quite a few out there. There's some great ones which even say numbers, don't just have the click. Some people find it easier to hear someone go 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's loads of metronomes around. Again, you look at the apps, there's hundreds in there. I said a couple there, but there's loads of them. So get a metronome. If you haven't got one, you should definitely have one. If you're not using one, you should be using one. Quite often students say to me, oh, I didn't use a metronome because, I'm using my internal metronome. Your internal metronome is broken, so make sure you use a proper metronome. It's just going to be variable. You might think you're staying in time, but there will be changes. You will be getting slightly faster, slightly slower. A metronome will stop that happening because it's obviously exact. So yeah, make sure you use a metronome. One of the biggest things, hence why it's number 1 on the 5 practice habits we want to be changing, because not a lot of people, or not enough people, use it. Now, we can use it for all of the skills, be it, our scales, our picking, our chords, or arpeggios, everything we can pretty much use to metronome. Metronome is fantastic, not just for obviously improving our timing. For beginner guitar key members, as you work through the method, you'll have a speed we will be aiming for. So once you hit that tempo, you know it's ready to be ticked off. You've reached that goal of hitting that speed. Also really good for motivation. So you can see this week I was working on my G major pentatonic scale and I did it at 60 beats per minute. Last week I did it at 55. So there's been an increase there in the tempo. So hey, I'm getting faster. It's getting more under my fingers. I'm learning it. So really good for motivation because you can see your progress. And anything you can do to chart and keep track of progress is really helpful because guitar progress can be slow. So things like that are going to be really, really good. So let's now move on to the second practice habit that your future self will thank you for, and that's use more fingers. So using more fingers, because as you're playing, weak fingers like the forefinger, maybe third finger or ring finger, are easy ones to leave out because they feel weak. Just because they don't feel that strong, and maybe first, second finger feel stronger because they're, more dominant fingers, it just means they need to be built up. The strength needs to be developed. It's not going to be there, so it's something to work on. The problem is if you only use, say, three fingers, quite often the case, quite often people leave out the pinky finger. So you're doing your minor pentatonic scale. You can see I'm stretching to play the fret 8, when little finger is just hovering above that fret 8. If I just put my fingers above the strings, naturally hovers there. So I'm stretching. What's the problem with stretching? I'm moving it out of position. First finger will probably stretch with it. And now if I put my finger down, I'm in the wrong fret. So it moves you out of position. Because there's more movement side to side, there's more chance of error. So as you move, oh, I missed a fret. I overshot it, didn't go far enough. There's more room for error. And if you're not using your pinky finger, you're just using 75% of what you could be using. So we want to be obviously playing at 100%. We're going to be using all our fingers. Now, little finger is a weak finger. It takes a while to build up. Now, I have got an example I would quickly want to show you as well of something I was doing with a group just the other day. And this is Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. So this is a really good example of using different fingers. So I'm up at fret 14. We're in E minor pentatonic. So I'm starting that 14 bend. I'm then going to play 12th fret on the B and the E. So that's the phrase. Now, you can see the things I'm using, that pinky finger just goes straight over that 15th fret, pulls off, 15 on the G. This is a really good example because there are 3 15s in that bar. Again, if we're not using that pinky finger, if we are stretching around that, straight away my fingers now come away from that fret. They're going to move back again. It's so much more fluent when using more fingers. Again, it feels harder in the short term, but in the long term, it is very, very useful. Again, this was a level 4 group. So someone that's been playing, a few years now was struggling with this because they weren't using all their fingers. So really important to make sure we're using all 4 fingers. There's some great little exercises. If you're a beginner guitar key member, I've got a whole video in the quick tips section that goes through building up the pinky finger. But just give you some examples. Let me come back actually to full screen to show you this. Just taking the top E string, thinking A minor pentatonic, first finger on our A, pinky's going to go on the C. So first finger's on fret 5, and then pinky's on fret 8, and then just hammering on. Playing the 5, hammering on to the 8. Hammer-ons are great strength builders. We can then pull off. We can then just do hammer-ons and pull-offs. That is a fantastic strength builder because the volume is being sustained by my hammer-ons and pull-offs. So we've got to have obviously very good control and good attack as we're hammering and pulling off to get that volume. So hammer and pull-offs, fantastic. These little exercises like the 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise, really good for, again, strengthening fingers. That was one that kind of I grew up with when I was learning, well, still I'm learning guitar, when I, my early years of playing guitar. So that's a really good example because that popped up in a lesson this week where the guy was finding it difficult because he was trying to stretch his fingers, put himself out of position, couldn't get the speed because it's not a slow phrase that. It's all 16th notes. We're in 6/8, so this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and... So it's consistent, there's no gaps. So we have to make it nice and smooth. So make sure you're using multiple fingers. Now, the next practice habit, number 3, is read the rhythm and count. So often we'll be learning a song in a group, and students will learn the rhythm by hearing me play it or have heard it in the song previously. They're not reading the rhythm. The problem with that is it slows down the learning and we have no comprehension about how it should sound except for obviously what we hear. When you can read rhythm, it makes it so much quicker to learn it, and obviously you're fully understanding it. Then when it comes time to put it to the metronome, you understand how what you're playing, the rhythm side of it, is going to fit in with the clicks and the beat, and you'll be able to stay in time a lot easier. That's the idea. Now I have another example here to show you. And again, something that I was looking at with students this week is Man Who Sold the World. And we do the unplugged version, the Nirvana cover, in level 3 of Beginner Guitar Academy. And we were doing this. We were looking at the A chord. And we go, okay, so that first bar of A, all A for a whole bar, happy days. We've got 8th notes, which are down, up strummings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Then we've got a tie, those little curved lines going from the 2 and to the 3, which means we don't play on number 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And. So my hand still goes down, I just miss the strings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And. Then we have the X's on beat 2. That means muted strum. So I'm strumming the strings, but just before I connect with the strings, my hand goes on them, so I'm strumming muted strings. And that's what we have. It's 1 and mute, up, miss, up, down. And that's the rhythm. But if you can't read the rhythm, you've then got to try and say, listen to it. Oh, what's happening there? Which one are we missing out? Which one are we doing that one on? As soon as you can see and relate to the numbers, you think, oh, okay, so number 3 we're missing. Easy. Number 2 we're muting. All right, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So much quicker. The problem is people don't look at the rhythm. And then we get to the higher levels, and because we haven't gone over the whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and we've kind of moved away from rhythm reading, it makes it so much harder, obviously, when you try and do it at a high level. People fall into this trap as well with pitch reading. So when we look at reading our stave and reading our notes, because they're not doing it consistently, when they come back to it, they've forgotten it, or it's gone, a bit dusty. It makes it so much harder. So these are skills we need to keep consistently coming back to. Recapping, this is something we're going to talk about one of our practice habits in a few time. So make sure we're reading the rhythm. Really, really good skill. If you're a beginner guitar key member, head over to the resource section. You'll see the PDF there, with the skill set PDF, where I've put together all of the pages throughout all the levels for rhythm. And you can really practice then your rhythm reading. Going all the way back to level 1. Again, if we're struggling with the level we're on because we haven't gone through it consistently, go back. Go back as far as you need to go to understand it. You can stay in time and then start building it back up again. Sometimes, we have to take away that ego, make things simple, build it up and think, okay, yeah, I need to go back to the beginning a little bit here and build it back up. There's no worry of doing that. And you'll get there, obviously, a lot quicker by doing so. So that's a really good song. Again, all these things have popped up that inspired this episode from actually in the studio, in the lesson room. So let's now move on to the next one. So look at the music, not your fingers. So look at the music and not your fingers, because this came from a comment that someone said the other day. So yeah, I'm going to, we're learning this song. I'm going to memorize it, and then I'm going to play it. So I need to memorize the music first, then I can play it. So that's going to really slow down the learning. So the idea is to read the music as you're playing it. One, so you don't have to memorize it. Obviously, it's going to take a while to memorize it. You can see what's coming up. You can see what's coming ahead, so you're not going to make mistakes. Again, we can read the music, so we can see what's going on. We can feel more connected to the music. So we want to read it, ideally. Now, eyes mainly on the page. You can look down to make sure, obviously, your hand hasn't wandered away and we're still in the right place. But the majority of what you're looking at should be the music. Once you can do that, one, you'll find you'll probably make less mistakes because your brain gets in the way. If you're looking too much at your fingers, you start overthinking it and you start complicating it. Your fingers know what to do. If you've been practicing enough, your fingers will know the shapes. You don't need to be looking at them all the time. This will really help eventually improve the accuracy and just improve fluency and kind of more confidence in playing as well. But the most important thing here is the speed of learning. It's like reading a book. Okay, I'm going to read the story once I've memorized all the words. It doesn't make sense. That's not how we read a book. Same with music. We want to get in the habit of just reading through it. It's something we start doing in level 3 and a little bit more, of trying to actually read through phrases and not looking at the guitar so much, looking at the music. But I'd recommend people do this from very early on, especially with note reading, because it makes it so much easier if you're not, say, looking at your fingers and looking up. You'll find where you are a lot quicker. You won't lose your place as soon as you look down, look back up. Very easy to lose where you are. So look at the music, not so much at your hands. So the last practice habit that your future self is going to thank you for is recapping old skills and songs. Quite often I hear students which are in the high levels say they don't know any songs, they can't play any songs. We've learnt songs up to that point. Each level has 10 or more songs in it. So you've obviously done songs up to that point. The problem is they've not been practiced, so they've been forgotten. So once you've learnt a song, write it down. This could be on your ultimate song list. This could just be on your computer in like a Word doc or something like that. Or even better, if you've got Spotify or even YouTube, create a playlist of the songs you can play. Then that can be like your set list. And then when you have a few minutes, or this could be one of your practice days in the week, you just play the songs. You just play around with them. You pick a random one, jump into it, and have a bit of fun with it. There's different levels when you're learning a song. So firstly, obviously, we've got to learn the chords, the shapes. We've got to learn strum pattern, maybe the solo. If there's some lead stuff, you might learn, some of the licks. But the first stage is being able to play the song. Then we go up to the next stage of actually really learning that song. So you have to look, you've memorized it. Only when you get past that memorization stage will you feel that, I can actually feel like I'm playing music now, because you don't have to think so much about it. You just kind of get lost in the music. You'll feel more confident to sing along with it because everything is just going kind of on habit. You're not having to think too much about it. So to get to the place where you see people playing the guitar and they make it look effortlessly, they've got beyond just learning the song. They've got to master the song. That's a few stages above that. And that comes just through practice and practice. So make your playlist, make your set list on Spotify, and keep coming back to it. I had a student that called this Revisiting Old Friends, where every week they'll just pick a song and have a little play through it. Because you're going to forget them, especially when you learn quite a few songs. They're easy to mix up. And the amount of songs I've played now through my 25 years of playing guitar that I've forgotten because obviously I haven't played through them recently. Now, obviously, because I can read music, I can pick them up pretty quick if I have the music in front of me. I've got fairly good ears, so I can listen to music and pick it up. But, they're not in my head if I haven't played them, obviously, for several years. So keep recapping this stuff. Keep going back through it. That's going to really help build your confidence. It's going to make you feel more like a guitar player when people say, you play guitar, play us a song. And then you're thinking, God, what song am I working on? What songs have I played? You want to have a good kind of archive of tunes in your head that you can have some fun with and, strum away and impress all your friends and family. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode. There are 5 practice habits that you want to be aware of right now and your future self is going to thank you for, because these are ones, say, I've seen this week. I've literally been writing them down as I've seen students doing this, because I wanted to share this with you guys and make sure you don't fall into the same trap as them. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Beginner Guitar Academy podcast. As I said earlier, we've got Metal March coming up just around the corner, where we're looking just at metal music. Even if you're not a fan of metal music, definitely want to check it out, because it's nothing more better than growing as a guitar player than looking at different styles of music and open your ears to different genres. Even if you're not a big fan of it, there's always something you can take away from it. Some new thing to learn, some new technique that might help you elsewhere. And also, if you're enjoying the podcast, really appreciate a rating review. Just head over to the Apple Podcast app, give me a nice little shiny 5 stars, and maybe just even a sentence something about how you're finding the podcast. And if you have any suggestions, head over to the website, bgapodcast.com. You can send me an email or voicemail through there. Let me know if you have any episode ideas, how you find it, if I could be of any help at all. Always, obviously, love to help you guys out, so just let me know. And finally, if you enjoy my teaching and you like to work with me personally one-on-one, come and join my online guitar school, beginnerguitaracademy.com. Not only do we have an awesome guitar method built over 5 levels that take from complete beginner to advanced student, you have one-on-one time with me where you can send me videos through video exchange. You can hit me up in the forums whenever you need me. I check them daily. So you have a teacher whenever you need one. And also, we have a really, really cool community of like-minded guitarists, really active forums on Beginner Guitar Academy. And you come check us out, 2 each child, just for $1 at beginnerguitaracademy.com. So guys, that is it for me. This week's episode is done. So make sure you keep your eyes open for next Friday's episode as we start Metal March. But until then, have some fun, keep practicing, and I'll chat to you next week.